Earlier this week, I was drinking water, as one does. And then I realized I don't drink a lot of water. I have a craving for everything else but water.
Okay.
And that's why I have this right here. I'm going to drink a whole glass every episode.
You're going to drink 8 ounces of water.
I figured it's
an episode.
It's a first good step in the right direction to drinking more water.
So we know in 4 episodes you would have at least drank
32 ounces.
32 ounces.
That is better than nothing. Eventually, I'll get to the point where I'm drinking like a gallon an episode.
Yep.
Welcome back to Honest to God podcast. I'm your host, Michael.
Yes, and I am also co-host Ricky.
You're just a host. You're another host.
Co-host hosting.
I feel like we're either both hosts or we're both co-hosts.
Host with the most.
That's true.
That is
the most hair.
We boast, but we don't.
Okay.
We boast in Jesus. So host, boast, most, toast.
Most.
Ooh, toast.
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 The toast host.
No, absolutely not. Hey, well, welcome back, everybody. It's really awesome to be able to have the privilege to do this and have the privilege to do this with Michael. He's generational Z, but he does have some knowledge.
Only like a little bit though. It's like compared to you, it's like 1/10.
That's not true. I just look like I know a lot. Don't let these glasses fool you.
Yeah. Where did those come from? Were you wearing those last time? I can't remember.
I think this is the first time everyone's going to see me wearing glasses. So, no, I don't think so.
Wow.
I'm wearing my contacts so much. My eyes are hurting. So,
You look better with the glasses.
Thanks.
I almost said you look cuter, and I was kind of worried about how that would
I'm a
come
married
off.
man, so let's not do that.
Okay.
Anyway, what are we talking about today? What are we talking about today?
Well, okay, so while Ricky did a lot of our expounding on our topics for our episodes, and today we're going to be really hitting on spirituality and religion. What are they? Do they need to go together, or are these separate things? Like, what is spirituality and what is religion? And just in my personal devotional time, I feel like the Lord has just been really revealing to me.
Yeah.
What the difference is between spirituality and religion, and if they are necessary to be together. So here's my question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I have a really great understanding about the difference between spirituality and religion, but I also took the time to kind of really dive into it.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think? How do you feel about the differences between spirituality and religion? Are they even really that different, or is there a difference?
I think there is absolutely a difference in it. I think when it comes to the spiritual, there's this big desire that everyone wants, just a spiritual I think of spiritual experience maybe more than anything. But I think a lot of times we operate more religiously than we think. Mm-hmm. So religiously through maybe some of the practical things we do. I think a lot of times when we are diving deep into religion thought, it starts getting into maybe sometimes out of line when it comes to judgment and stuff like that. And then things get kind of when it comes to the spiritual side of things are now skeptical. Is this even real or not? Yeah. And we start chasing spiritual experiences instead of really Jesus. And when I think that, I'm curious, is there really a balance between the two? Mm-hmm. And I know, you definitely have looked into this a lot as of late. And but what do you think?
Well, I think you're really hitting on some things, something you said that just immediately triggered in me. I didn't even think about this, but to some degree, every human being is spiritual. Right. I can't remember who said it, but there was I'm pretty sure this was a secular person. On
Beyonce?
Probably, who knows? But I feel like it was I want to say Neil deGrasse Tyson, but I don't think it's Neil deGrasse Tyson. Was talking about how at our core, all human beings are spiritual. To some extent, you worship something. Yeah. Now, whether that thing is God or something else, right, that could be completely different. And so when you were just talking about to some degree, everyone is spiritual, whether that's knowing Jesus or like wanting to associate with Jesus, or like things like crystals, or things like, evil eye, or dream catchers, or another form of, basically another god.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're spiritual in
Idols
the sense of
or something like that.
Yeah, exactly like that. To some degree, we're all spiritual. And you said that, and it just kind of like got me thinking. Kind of like when I was going through it, and I was like, okay, like, well, obviously, like when I read my Bible, it talks a lot about my spirituality, and it also talks about religion a lot.
Yeah.
I'm like, so I was like, there has to be a difference if it's talked about a little bit differently in the Word, and kind of like the way that I feel like that I was able to really like come down to it is like being spiritual is wanting to associate with something while not wanting to give your life to it. Like, it's like, so I think like the example that I was finding with this is like somebody who grew up in like the Bible Belt.
Right.
Okay. Like everyone in the Bible Belt would say they're a Christian because they grew up in that area.
Mm-hmm.
They believe in God, but that's kind of where it stops. It's like, oh yeah, I'm a Christian, but they just live their life never like actually giving themselves to Jesus, whether that be like reading their Bible. Like they would say they're a Christian and they probably haven't prayed once or read their Bible once. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like they just grew up and was like, well, duh, God exists, but like I don't have to. Like that's like, I feel like spirituality, it's almost like this association.
Right.
Like you have a lot of people who walk around with like WWJD bracelets on.
Yeah.
And then you find like homeboys doing something real sketch on the weekend. Like, you know what I'm saying?
It's like they wear the uniform until they actually have to do maybe something that involves having to actually like get dirty with the uniform or something.
When you said that, what came to my head was they wear the uniform but they don't go to the school. It's like I wear like they wear the like, Florida State University jersey. They go to the basketball games, they like the football games. They don't go to the classes.
It's like they don't do the homework. It's like an FSU fan but never went to FSU.
Yeah, it's
nothing against it, but
spirituality is wearing the uniform but not going to the school.
they want
they want the colors. They want the colors.
Yeah. Which I think is can be, well, I think it can be also in the sense of like we like wearing it too until like it gets like shaky, like we're tested in a way, like.
Or do you put that uniform on when they losing?
Yeah, right. Like if you just captured a big L, right? Yeah. And it's like, man, gonna have to, burn the jerseys.
Yeah. Literally, I feel like that, like in the weirdest way possible. This makes so much sense because it's like that's exactly what it is. It's a uniform that you put on when you want to support the team, but when you can quickly take off because you're not actually involved.
Yeah.
Like it's a uniform I wear because I like this team. I like watching the games, but the second I want to be in a place where I want to be with a bunch of fans of the other sport, I'm taking off the Jesus jersey and wearing something else. Yeah. Like I feel like that's exactly what spirituality is. Mm-hmm. They really like the team. They really like the team of Christians.
Yeah.
They don't want to support it all the time in front of everybody. They don't want the cost of when people see them wearing that jersey. They know that there's a standard of higher living they're called to.
Yeah.
And so like it's that spirituality. It's religion at your own, like, expense, like whatever you want
on your own terms,
pretty much exactly like that.
Yeah.
So that being said, with like that being spirituality, religion, I think is just the exact same thing, except you do go to the school.
Right.
Like religion is, okay, I not only wear the Jesus jersey, but I now am practicing it. I now am doing my homework. I am attending all my classes. Like when I'm around my friends outside of my school, guess what jersey I still have on? Like I feel like that is almost religion. But also, if you were to have religion, you did all of the church things, but you didn't practice it outside, well, then I think that even in itself is its own form of spirituality. I think spirituality is the lack of commitment, where religion is the practice of spirituality with the commitment. Yeah. So it's almost like they're almost like halves of each other.
Yeah.
Like spirituality is, okay, I really want this. Religion's like, okay, I really want to practice this. But until you have both together, you're not really cooking with something.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And I kind of wonder too, like with our different generations, like where where do we see that in our generations? Like I can think about with like millennials, we were so, I almost, at least from my own perspective, it feels, or at least I think that we were more spiritual chasing than we were religious, like religion. Like I think when I was growing up, like I was around a lot of like religion, like practices, but always kind of chasing that spiritual experience because at least when I was younger, I felt like, man, if we didn't have like the most lit worship team, like we were not in the spirit. Like we were not spiritually, like we weren't spiritually excellent, if that's even a thing, you know? To where like I see the importance of like both. Like I think there needs to be a balance of both of them. But I think my generation really pursued on if we needed to get like the fanciest stuff to create the spiritual experience to make the religion practice not boring. And it almost like makes me wonder if that then created gaps.
That's almost like it's almost like the secondary snare. The problem with spirituality is you want to take the jersey off. The problem with just having religion without your daily practice of Jesus is you want to do religion the best you can. You want to have the best, religion, so to speak, having the best worship band and all of those things. I think that makes a lot of sense. One of the scriptures that I was like finding when I was like reading more into this, is in James 1, which if you read James, it's a horrible book. Yeah, it's 5 chapters of you suck.
Super edifying. Super like, hey, bro.
Get your life together.
Loser. Like do better is literally it's the book of do better.
It's the book of do better. Do you have James 1:26 pulled up?
Yeah.
You want to read it?
No, I don't.
Okay.
But yeah, I will. Okay. James, you said you want James
1:26 through 27.
26. Okay, so
read it.
So if you claim to be religious but don't control your tongue, you're fooling yourself and your religion is worthless. Verse 27, pure and genuine religion in the sight of God the Father means caring for orphans and widows in their distress and refusing to let the world corrupt you. Tell me about it.
I mean, like, could the Bible not be more clear? Like, in all of that, it's like, hey, be religious, control yourself.
Right.
And then practice it. Look after orphans and widows in their distress, and keep yourself unstained from the world. Literally in these two verses, it's literally saying, "Hey, don't deceive yourself. Don't be like the world. Your religion doesn't matter if you're not practicing it, and if you're not controlling yourself with your religion, then it also doesn't matter." It's like in the way it's saying like your actions have to line up with the jersey you're wearing. Your actions have to line up with the team that you support. So if you support Jesus, well then, and you're public about it, and you're really like seriously pursuing him, well then your actions, the way you control your tongue, how you care for the widows and the orphans in their distress, should evidently show that. And I think that is encompassing in 2 verses how religion without spirituality doesn't matter. If you're not practicing it, your religion itself is an idol. And then if you're only being spiritual, but you're not pursuing, you're not bold, you're not always wearing the identity of I'm a Christian, well then why are you associating with a team that you're not giving yourself 100%
right
to?
And I think as Christians too, like we fall into these spiritual experience like traps, especially like if you grew up through like student ministry of any kind and you go on like any kind of youth camps or anything like that, or you go to a conference like a men's conference, women's conference, anything like that, you fall into these moments of like you get this spiritual experience like, oh gosh, God is so awesome, like this happened, it changed my life, yada yada, but then you get back home and you forget about the practice. Like you were like, oh, I'm going to read my Bible every single day. Oh, I'm going to get in a devotion every day. I'm going to do my 60 to start or whatever. And then all of a sudden, like it just slips off and you forget the discipline and the religious part of being a Christian as well. And it's like, you have to have both to be able to like progress in a way. If that, I mean, it's not that like there's like in Christianity, it's like, you know, you're not like leveling up like, oh, you're the higher elite Christian now of all of a sudden, you know, but like at the same time, like, with sanctification and all that stuff, and you're trying to get closer and closer to becoming more like Christ, right?
Yeah.
Through sanctification, like why it's like it's so easy to fall into that trap.
Yeah.
To where like, man, if we could control ourselves, if like, oh man, if we could really see where we're at right now, like where our hearts are right now, and address those things to then get into the practice. Who knows where we'd be a year from now or so.
Yeah.
But I see that a lot in like in youth, and I see that a lot in people around my age and stuff too, is they fall into these spiritual like traps. But they've never built up like a practice of any kind.
Yeah.
I don't know if that made any sense.
No, I think it makes a lot of sense. And it's almost like personally, I've already finished my water. Like I'm doing so good. Honestly, I need to get a 16-ounce water.
I'm proud of you.
Now.
I'm drinking a quad espresso, but that's just, we don't have to worry about it. I'm not telling you the time of day. I'm not telling you all the time of day right now.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Anyways, back
falling
to,
into the traps of like spiritual experiences and stuff, and then forgetting about the practices when we get home. And then we are like, it's like almost like we live off the spiritual experience. Like the spirituality is the only way we live, and we're not actually living through the practice of the religion.
Yeah.
And like we're hoping for, and we just get enticed by high productive like worship services and just awesome pastors that have studied really hard. So they just have like bangers of sermons essentially like that. Right. But then we just expect that like everything has to happen and I'm good by just showing up on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
I'm good showing up on a Sunday morning. I'm good showing up to the once every 6 months,
the Easter
conference,
and Christmas service,
Easter and Christmas service of that. And then it's like, if I just keep chasing the spiritual without having the practice of the religious side of it, I'm going to be fine. And we realize this whole time that what's happening is things in our lives are deteriorating. Our marriages are falling apart. Our relationships are falling apart. Like we don't know how to handle tough situations. We're full of anxiety. We're full of stress. And all of a sudden now we're at our lowest point and we're like, oh man, I hope the spiritual conference is going to help me right now. And it does for like a day or two, and then you get back home and you have to face reality again, and you don't realize the discipline of living through the religion and combining both spiritual and religion together is actually what's going to equip you and fuel you for the rest of this life. Sorry, I just went on a tangent, but
no, that's really that's all really great. I think that equipping is so important, and like I think that almost just identifies the danger of not really stepping into, like identifying as I am a Christian. That is a religion, and it is a daily discipline that I pursue spiritually in my life. In my generation, something that I see all the time that like it definitely like bothers me. Like I can't. Every time I see it, is like Jesus isn't a religion; he's a relationship.
Oh,
I'm like, ooh, yes, he is. What do you mean he's not a religion though? I'm like, what do you mean? And it's very popular to say we don't want religion, we want relationship. I'm like, no. Christianity, the whole point of Christianity is relationship with Jesus. But if you try to take away religion, you're waving a flag to the world going, hey guys, go pick another religion because we're not one. Like, wait. Don't we want to be clear we are a religion? Don't we also want to be clear that we're the only religion that leads to eternal life, that leads to breakthrough, that leads to, your salvation, your forgiveness of sins? Like, it's so popular. And I see young people say it all the time, guys, Christianity is so awesome because it's not a religion, it's a relationship. And they want the spirituality without the label. They want the spirituality without the stance. I'm like, the stance is so important. If you're not willing to take the stance of Christianity is the only way to truth in life, like you're fighting for Jesus in the worst way possible. You're like, hey guys, Jesus is so awesome, but he's not a religion, so just go pick a different religion. Like, I feel like then what is it?
And what's stopping you, say if someone comes in and gives you some tough questions, you don't know how to answer it? What's stopping you from like, oh, I guess you're right. Like I'm in the wrong religion. Or, oh gosh, like no, I'm in the wrong belief. Or I'm curious, like how that even started.
I honestly, I think how it started is like I would say that the phrase church hurt is at an all-time high.
Oh, church hurt? Church hurt?
And every time I hear it, like spiders crawling up my back, I arise from my chair and go, who said that?
I feel like we should, that meme where it's like everything's on fire and the guy's like, this is fine, right? I think we should edit that entire shirt and where like his shirt says church hurt and like flames are all around and it's like, but this is fine because we just know you're going to go somewhere else and then you're going to get church hurt again. So then you're going to have like 2 shirts that say church hurt on it. So it's like, oh man. But church hurt's real though. Church hurt is real in a lot of ways. I mean, go into it another time, but yeah.
I think that the idea is at an all-time high.
Yeah, the idea.
I've heard more people go, "Oh, I was hurt by the church."
You think it's like a scapegoat?
I think it is a scapegoat.
Yeah.
I don't think it's just a scapegoat, but I think it leads to, hey, religion hurt me. I can do without it because I can do my daily discipline with Jesus. I don't have to go to church. All I need is this relationship. I'm like, great. If only you would reconcile what your hurt was.
Yeah.
If only you would do what the Bible says to do.
Right.
Like, hey, you have an issue with somebody? Someone came up to you at church on Sunday and said a mean thing to you? Instead of taking the route of, oh, all I want is a relationship now, I'm never coming here again. Like, why don't you bring that to that person?
Yeah.
And bring it with the expectation to not receive forgiveness, but to give forgiveness. Like, I think that, like, that's the other thing is, like, people be like, no, I tried to resolve it. They wouldn't forgive me. I'm like, but were you willing to forgive them?
Right.
I'm like, how could you expect something from somebody that you weren't first able to give yourself?
Yeah.
And I think that, like, that would be my reason why. Like, why is this, like, so popular to be like, oh, I just want the relationship aspect. I just want the spirituality aspect. Well, I think that it could all come back down to a bad taste left in your mouth by this idea of religion. I think that's why that word almost is like a trigger word now. Like, oh, religion?
Yeah.
I don't like that. Like, you know, it's almost like, it almost like sparks like, or like reminds people of like a bad memory. It's like a trigger word. I think that that's almost like why that happens. And I mean, I don't know what to do about it other than like continue to encourage people to reconcile.
There's so much involved in just like this, like the idea of church hurt, especially when it comes to relationships. Just like when people are like, you know, I want to wear the uniform, you know, of following Jesus, but then like when it comes to the practices, they don't want to do it, or like it's only on their own terms. In the same way, it's the same thing with like relationship. Like I have a relationship with Michael Branda, but only if it goes my way. But one time that you, Michael, do anything that is not cool with me and I didn't agree with, that you don't even know about, and the expectations of our friendship, then like, bro, we're done, kind of thing. Yeah, like we're out.
And you could have 10 years of relationship with me.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden, like I say one thing that rubbed you slightly wrong. Yeah. And you were to just cut me off.
Cut you off
like,
completely.
Personally, I don't know what I would be able to do. I don't know what I would do with myself. Like, I would argue that would almost hurt me more than it hurts you.
Yeah. Definitely going to have to talk about that on another episode. But what else you got for this?
Well, you didn't like this rabbit hole we were
No,
going
I
down?
didn't. I didn't like this rabbit hole. I wasn't ready to get into that.
All right.
Go ahead.
Well, I think that, like, to kind of like bring us back onto like topic with spirituality and religion, it's not that hard. This idea of living daily, being a daily disciple for Jesus, walking by the Spirit, walking in the way that Jesus did. Like, one of the scriptures that I think I wrestle with the most, but I think that spells out something really important, is in Matthew 11. It's verses 28 through 30 for those of you listening. It says this. It says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take up my yoke and learn from me, because I am lowly and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." This is the kicker. "For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." Man, I had a friend who lost his mom, and I remember one of the things that he said to me is he's like, "I'm doing okay." He's like, "I can't imagine how I would be doing if I didn't know Jesus." And I was just like, that's when it hit me. I'm like, this idea of like, because like sometimes I read that and I go, man, people still go through hard stuff as a Christian.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, but Jesus said that this mantle is easier and this burden of being a Christian is lighter than any other thing I were to carry in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it doesn't make sense. And something that when he was talking to me, it just clicked. And I'm like, man, when your mom passes away, if you know Jesus and don't know Jesus, those two people are going to have two very different responses and two very different reactions. Because like now he's killing it, like, you know, and his life has only kept going in a positive direction.
Yeah.
And I think that if I were to ask him again, he would boil it all down to pursuing Jesus on a daily basis, actually carrying the yoke. And like more and more, I think like these people who claim spirituality but won't give their lives to Jesus, who won't put on this yoke, who won't wear this burden, they are missing out on something that is easier because they have convinced themselves it's harder.
Yeah.
They've convinced themselves it's a rule set. They've convinced themselves I'd rather party, or I'd rather like, you know, do this. If I were to wear this yoke, I wouldn't be able to do all these other things. And I'm like, stop looking at it as, oh no, I can no longer do all these things that I like. You're going to be able to walk through everything way easier than you did before.
Yeah.
Like depression, anxiety, like when you walk through mental health, not knowing Jesus and knowing Jesus, it's two different things. Like it's two different things. Like not saying that it's like not, I don't want to be misconstrued. Like depression and anxiety are very real things.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, oh, when you know Jesus, you don't deal with those things. No, you do.
Yeah.
How you deal with them, completely different from somebody who doesn't know Jesus. And I would say that if I were to talk to two people, one who didn't and did know Jesus and struggle with mental health, I would probably argue that the person who does know Jesus is walking with a yoke that is easier and a burden that is lighter. And I think that is like something that I was like really thinking about with this idea of like we avoid this religion word because it has a bad taste in our mouths, or for some of us. But really identifying with the fullness of Christianity, not just on a Sunday morning, but on a day-to-day basis, and walking through spirituality is an easier burden. It is a yoke that we are meant to bear that is lighter than everything else. So why aren't we taking the fullness of it? I think that's really what kind of like wrapped it all together for me, is like Christianity is the only way. Like it's a religion. It is the true religion. And when I walk in the fullness of it, I'm not only walking with Jesus, but he's fighting for me in my walk. His yoke is easier. His burden is light. Do I really trust that? And I wish that the people who were on both sides of I just want to be spiritual or I just want to glorify religion would understand that the fullness of what Jesus has is way better than the thing that they're worshiping outside of it.
Yeah, it's good.
Sorry, I kind of talked for a while.
No, I mean, it's good. I mean, there's a lot there that we can unpack, and it would take like 60 hours to unpack all those things. But it just shows like the importance, even like with having community and stuff like that. Because like I think about your friend, like if he didn't have you, or if he didn't have people around him that was pouring into his life and stuff like that, like how would he have known what direction to go?
Who also know Jesus.
Yeah, like having a group of people, having community that love Jesus. Yeah, like this is why we go to church. Yeah, this is why church hurt is not more important than going to the church that maybe hurt you. Like, man, like you just can't give up on community, because community is going to be the reason that keeps you going and keep you floating, hold you into the direction that you need to go when you think that there is no direction to go. Yeah. You know, they're the one that's going to keep you up and lifted. And there's just so much there. And I know different generations like deal with that differently. And, nah, man, like I think that's good. I think that's really, really good in the sense like, no, I got nothing. I got nothing, bro. Like,
that was so funny.
No, I mean it's good.
I mean, I think that there's just one of the things that I really had like with the heart for this podcast is like I don't necessarily want to leave people coming to the podcast and just getting answers. Right. My hope is that through whatever conversation we have is that they have questions. Yeah. And I wouldn't like, not to say that we are saying things that they're like, whoa. Yeah. I'm going to need to go and check that against my word. But more so like, oh, you know, Ricky said something that like really made me think about this area of my life. Yeah. Like I find that wisdom is most attained the more you're asking questions instead of trying to give wisdom. Like if I'm just around here going, oh, God, give me wisdom so I can start being wise for people. Right. Like I don't find that I'm getting a lot of wisdom.
Yeah.
But I find more often when I'm going, hey, pastor, I was thinking about this the other day. How can I do X, Y, and Z better? Or if I'm asking questions, the amount of wisdom I receive is eternally more than when I'm trying to force wisdom upon people. So like, honestly, that's my hope. And I really like feel like just based off the conversation we had, like, yeah, there are a lot of rabbit holes that we can go down, but we're trying to keep our podcast in like a reasonable time space so people can actually listen consistently.
Yeah.
And I think that just based off of like what we've talked about today is like there are opportunities for people to start asking questions in their own life, which I think leads to wisdom, which I think leads to them being more honest to God, with God, to God, to the people that are in the body with them.
Yeah.
So I really think that just with this religion and spirituality, like, hey, here's what we think about it. If you want, rules without practice and practice without rules, like you've lost the point.
Right.
You need, to some extent, structure and a discipline to keep that structure.
Yeah.
And that is what spirituality and religion, I feel like, looks like to me. And I feel like in whatever context people are in, whatever age they are, that's a framework that can help them construct something that is better.
Right.
So that's kind of where my thoughts end here.
Yeah,
so,
that's awesome. And again, like, we are also two people that keep asking questions and seeking just truth and all that stuff. And, if you all who are listening, ask questions, ask us questions. We would love to hear what your questions are and, maybe bring it back up into a podcast and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm excited because right now, as we're recording this, our first podcast comes out in 3 days.
It's going to be sick.
So we will actually be able to start hearing feedback and hearing the questions that we have coming in. And I'm excited to not just see the questions, but respond to them and kind of spend time.
I'm excited to engage and interact with people on Instagram and on our social media platforms as well. Like, really developing just this community to where, like, it's safe to ask questions and safe to go through things. And, like, man, I'm going to love you just like, God loves you. And, I'm going to do my best. Like, God's really hard to compete against when it comes to loving someone.
No, for real.
So, like,
for real.
Real facts for sure. Sorry, was that Gen Z enough for you?
No, straight facts.
But yeah, no, I think that's it. I think that's good for the end of this episode for this one here.
Cool.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next time on Honest to God. Bye.
Bye.